Hello, hello. Amanda Kendall with Elevating Profits here. So we have literally not even 3 full hours ago received a new law from President, and it's regarding the PPP changes. And so I wanted to jump on here. It's not a long one, so I've kind of read through it, looked at the old law, seeing what it's changed, and I just want to bring you some of the quick highlights of it so you have that going into the weekend. So a lot of people have been concerned about the 8-week window on the PPP funding, and that 8-week window, sorry, I'm pulling my notes over here for me, that 8-week window being a little too short, specifically for restaurants, some businesses that weren't able to open up right away. And so they got the funding and then they weren't able to use it within the 8 weeks because they were really worried that they weren't going to open up. So this is a huge change. That 8-week window is now being pushed to 24 weeks. So what does this mean? This means a couple things. One, if you were really worried about making the 8-week window and being able to use those funds in the appropriate manner, now you have 24 weeks to do so. If you utilized your funds within the 8 weeks, you still have the option to use that 8 weeks, which appears it will be done by a self-made election on the forgiveness form. So we're still waiting on a new forgiveness application to be issued. I'm imagining that will be sometime next week, but not holding my breath on that. When that comes out, I will make sure that I announce it and put a link up for it. However, that 8-week window has been moved to 24 weeks as of right now. The other thing that has changed, which is huge, is that 75% requirement for payroll expenses has been reduced to 60%. So for small businesses that have large rent or mortgage payments each month, for small businesses that had some other expenses, but their payroll was not going to quite work within that 8-week window, you now have two things here. You can use it over 24 weeks, so you can use it more for the payroll expenses than what you could in an 8-week period when it was based off a 2.5% or 2.5 times calculation on that. But the requirement has also been reduced to 60%. So you only have to use 60% of it for payroll expenses, and the other 40% can be used for those other allowable expenses under the PPP regulations. And so that in and of itself is going to be a huge benefit to small businesses here. Let me see. So the rehire date, when this initially came out, you had to have rehired by June 30th in order to qualify for the FTE, the full-time employee equivalent piece of it. That's now been moved to December 31st. So again, for some businesses that were not able to hire back right away because of either COVID-19 restrictions or just specifically the type of business you had and it didn't make sense to open, now you're getting some more time on the back end of this, which is awesome. The full-time employee requirements, you're getting a couple changes here on this. So when you applied for the PPP, one of the questions on the form asked you how many full-time equivalent employees you had. The reason for this was because there was a requirement under PPP to maintain a similar number of FTEs, full-time equivalent employees. With those employees, if you filled out an application saying you had 7 employees, then when you went for the forgiveness, you would have to show that you paid 7 employees during that time. We've had a big change on this because I have talked to a lot of my clients that are like restaurant owners, salon owners, a lot of places that they're like, my employees are making more on unemployment right now due to the CARES Act and what they added to unemployment there than what they're making if they come back to work. So I've got a lot of employees refusing to come back to work or not wanting full-time hours so that they can still collect some unemployment. Side story there, but what this allows us to do is now for your business, we can document employees who refuse to come back to work or ask for reduced hours. So you just need to make sure you're documenting this. If somebody left, if you had to lay someone off, if somebody was terminated for whatever the reason, if you cannot find a similarly qualified employee for the one who did not come back, then you can use that. However, I'm assuming based on the way this is worded that this is going to have to be for a highly specialized position, because if you just have an administrative assistant, the qualifications there are not going to be as strict as if you're looking for an engineer or an architect in your business. So that's a piece there, though, that if you have highly qualified positions and you were not able to fill them, then you're going to be able to slip through on this FTE requirement there. Again, this could be due to safety requirements imposed by COVID-19 guidelines and regulations of operating our businesses now. Another big change is any unforgivable amount was going to be on a 2-year term with payments starting 6 months after the forgiveness window. Well, the problem that we started to see with this was we've got a lot of businesses that are right up on that 8-week window right now, and the banks are not ready to start processing those forgiveness applications. Like they don't, similar to when this all came out, they really don't know what this process looks like and exactly what their steps are going to need to be. So we were in situations where when we're talking to banks, we're really wondering like, okay, like, is this 6-month window going to come before the bank's even ready to forgive this? And so does that mean that we have to tell our clients and these business owners out here that you now have to start making payments on this, even though there's a chance it's going to be forgiven? Doesn't make any freaking sense. So we've had some changes there. The 2-year window is now a 5-year window. So it's now a 5-year loan on anything that is unforgiven. And the repayment period, that 6 month, is determined based on when the bank processes the forgiveness application. So if your bank takes 6 months to process that application, then you have 6 months after that time to start making repayments. So it's going to not have that overlap that we were worried about with the forgiveness not being done, but the 8-week window having lapsed and now 6 months out from there being an issue. If you don't apply for forgiveness for any portion of the PPP, then your repayment window starts 10 months after your, well, what is now a 24-week period. So there's definitely some time frames you've got to be really aware of and really cautious of here to make sure that you're really looking at those and monitoring those. But just know that there are some extensions on this piece of it that are going to push that out so we don't have that overlap that we were really, really concerned about. I know a couple business owners that got their PPP and immediately turned around and sent it back to the bank when they started to see some of these restrictions. They're like, it's not worth the headache, I'm not doing it. Doesn't make any sense. If you did that, you are still eligible to reapply and just go talk to your bank and work through that. If you need some assistance, let me know, we can help with that. But that is huge that you can now reapply if you send it back based on the restrictive requirements on this. The other thing that I had posted about earlier this week, as far as the talk of automatically approving the forgiveness for all PPP loans that were under 150,000, this is still just a proposal that came in from a couple financial institutions. That's not yet been addressed by Congress, so we don't have an answer on that quite yet. But I'm keeping my eye on it. As soon as we see something, I will be updating you guys. But those are the changes that came through in the new act that was signed in today. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. Otherwise, if you don't, hopefully that answered your questions, because like I said, there is a lot going on here as far as these changes. And in my opinion, they're all great changes. It's going to make things a little bit more hectic for some small business owners as they're working through that forgiveness piece and what that looks like. But don't give up hope. Stay safe, stay sane, and stay healthy, guys.